are you?
We're very happy to welcome you all here in the presence of the Interior Minister of Albania, Sandra Leshaj, and Commissioner for Migration, Home Affairs and Citizenship, Dimitris Avramopoulos, who will today sign an arrangement on counterterrorism cooperation. So without further ado, we will first proceed with the signing ceremony, which will be followed by a short press point by the Minister and the Commissioner. First invite the Commissioner to take the floor, followed by the Minister.
Thank you. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, we are here today to mark an important achievement in our cooperation with Albania. I am indeed very pleased to be here with the Minister of Interior of Albania, Sandra Leshaj, with whom we have established a very strong, also personal friendship. Albania is the first Western Balkan partner with which we have, just as you saw before, signed the implementation arrangement on counter-terrorism. North Macedonia will follow this afternoon. Today is a deliverable of the joint action plan on counter-terrorism with the Western Balkans, which the European Union signed with all 6 Western Balkan partners last year. This arrangement will allow Albania to demonstrate tangible engagement and progress on security issues. We had discussed it with the Prime Minister of Albania in one of my visits before, and we had agreed to step up all necessary procedures in order to reach this moment. We are jointly addressing key priority areas, including the prevention of radicalization and violent extremism, and challenges posed by returning foreign terrorist fighters and their families. In addition, it will be important to achieve progress on anti-money laundering and terrorist financing. We should also keep addressing illicit trafficking of firearms. These are just a few concrete examples, and of course much of this work is the responsibility of the Albanian authorities. Where we can, we will help with the support of Commission experts and of Europol. I expect we will be able to sign similar implementing arrangements with the other Western Balkan partners over the coming weeks. During my term as Commissioner responsible both for migration and for security, the level of cooperation between the European Union and Albania has gone from strength to strength. For example, only a few months ago, the first European Borders and Coast Guard teams were deployed in Albania to support Albanian border guards with equipment and staff. This was a historic step. It was the first time that European Borders and Coast Guard teams have been deployed in a non-EU country to provide assistance directly on the ground. This cooperation has already shown positive results and significantly contributed to the increased interception of irregular crossings at the borders between Greece and Albania. Earlier this week, we signed a similar status agreement with Montenegro, and the finalization of agreements with the other Western Balkan partners are in the pipeline too. Dear friends, when it comes to ensuring our security, better managing and protecting our borders, and managing migration, the challenges we face are common indeed, and so must be our response. Step by step, the European Union and the Western Balkan partners are coming closer. To the European Union, Albania is more than a neighbor, and today is another significant step forward on our journey together. And I hope, my dear friend, that this journey will bring us together one day, as you deserve to be, as members of the same European family.
Thank you very much, dear Commissioner and dear friend. I've been told that I should speak in Albanian, and so I'm doing so in respect of my language.
Thank you very much, dear Commissioner. Thank you very much, dear Commissioner and dear friend. Thank you, first of all, for the continuous and significant and important support that you have given to the Western Balkans at large, and in particular to Albania. Your contribution, Mr. Commissioner, has meant that we have taken some very important, indeed historic steps, which you have already mentioned in your comments, so I'm not going to repeat them. But of course, these steps actually mark an hour of a historic success. So for the very first case, we ensured that Frontex officers would have an executive status. That's an unprecedented step by transferring, therefore, a part of the competences and the executive authority, in other words, a bit of our sovereignty, to the EU, which means that Albania is in actual fact behaving as an EU member state, despite the fact that it is still awaiting the opening of negotiations with the EU. In other words, this is a very important proof of the pudding, as it were, of the EU standards and values that we wish to embrace. Albania also became the very first country that has opened its Europol office in Albania after Washington. It is the first time that Europol has an office outside EU member states. And again, this bears witness to the serious engagement of Albania to embrace and implement EU values and principles. In other words, unconditioned loyalty that we are giving to the EU. And of course, we are doing this fully, consciously and willingly. And there is unprecedented support in Albania for the EU, as you know, one of the highest not only in the region in terms of the percentages, but also the percentages elsewhere in EU member states, for instance. And allow me to mention one more thing, which also bears witness to our own engagement, the fact that Albania has guaranteed the EU, through its own representatives, constitutional powers to intervene in the system of selecting judges and prosecutors. In other words, what we randomly call the vetting process, where the European representatives have a very important constitutional role, unprecedented role to play, which at the same time marks one of the most important reforms that Albania has embarked upon, therefore becoming a model in this very important field in the profound revolutionary reform of the justice system, so that we can have a new justice system, impartial, independent, accountable for its citizens, and free from corruption and any undue influence. And in relation to what we are here today for, the signing of this counterterrorism implementation arrangement, what I can say is that yet again, this, as you said, is also another first step. So we continue to be the first, as it were, in this coming ever closer to the EU, this process of putting our forces jointly together to fight extremism, radicalization, to exchange experiences, and to respond in a joint manner to these challenges, which unfortunately have engaged us in the past and will continue to do so in the future. Albania continues to remain fully committed not only in implementing this arrangement, but also in implementing all of its commitments vis-à-vis the meeting of all EU standards and respecting these standards. We're also hopeful that the efforts of the Albanian people will be recognized, appreciated, as it were, also in the Council's meeting for the opening of negotiations for Albania's eventual EU membership, because we very much hope that through this green light, which we are actually expecting and rather looking forward to, that is all of the Albanian citizens, but also everybody in the political spectrum of the country, we believe that reformist individuals and people will be motivated, encouraged, and we are hopeful indeed that EU member states will recognize this major progress, but also the extraordinary aspiration of Albania as an as a European member, rather. I've mentioned in the past Southeastern Europe rather than the Western Balkans, because we are in our genesis European, and coming ever closer to the EU is just coming back home. It's a natural status for us, coming back to the place we deserve, not only from a historical point of view, but also geographical and future-like. Dear Commissioner, dear friend, once again, thank you very much for the extraordinary contribution that you have given to bringing our region, and Albania in particular, ever closer to the EU, and I very much hope that you will remain a vociferous person, strongly encouraging Southeastern Europe and its eventual membership in the European family in the future. Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister and Commissioner. We now have the time to take a couple of questions. So my first hand is raised there. If you could please introduce yourself.
Of course,
which
thank
media
you.
you're.
Ernest Bunguri from Euronews Albania. First to the Minister in Albanian.
Minister, we know full well as to what's happening, but what can we expect from the Netherlands about organized crime and France about migrants? And what are the concrete steps that your ministry has taken so that these concerns can be allayed, if possible at all, before the 15th of October decision? And for the Commissioner?
Please assess the fight of Albania against organized crime and the phenomena of asylum seekers, because you know of asylum seekers. We have Albanian asylum seekers. France, it's one of the countries which is worried about. So if you can assess from the side of the Commission, again, what Albania has been doing in these two fronts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your question, Mr. Bungure. We are, of course, absolutely clear in terms of the sensibilities of some EU member states insofar as what Albania has to do so that negotiations can be opened. And France and the Netherlands remain countries that have question marks or concerns that have yet to be addressed. We have had an intensive dialogue with both countries so as to make it possible for us to clarify these issues for them, because unfortunately whenever there's talk of Albania, there seems to be a difference between the reality on the ground and the perception abroad, and this difference is considerable, the objective reality and the perception, and that's for several reasons, and one of these is actually the burden is up to us really to make these things clear, and you are also part of it as part of the media, so not you as an individual but as a representative of the media. I wish to tell you one thing which I've also shared with my Dutch colleague, and that is about the participation of Albanians in criminal gangs in the Netherlands, which is actually almost insignificant, because Albania, in the general terms of the numbers, is a number which is 0.02% of the total. And therefore, in terms of crime that is perpetrated by Albanians in the Netherlands is a lot less than crime that is perpetrated by citizens of EU member states in the Netherlands. So much, much less than citizens. I wouldn't say representatives, but I mean EU citizens of EU member states. So, in other words, it's not as if we're talking a major number of Albanian criminals in the Netherlands. However, I believe that it is of utmost importance to reiterate here that the perception about this is what it is. It is the perception which exaggerates the reality multifold. We've tried to clarify the situation, to explain things, and rather than this, we've also tried to intensify our cooperation with our Dutch partners, so that in any single case, because a single case alone of an Albanian criminal suffices for them to become concerned, and okay, we're not talking about a single individual, of course, but perhaps a dozen, but this is the fact that we need to have cooperation mechanisms so that we can actually face these challenges together, because this crime is taking place in the Netherlands, and legally speaking, it is the mandate of the authorities in that country to deal with it. But we, as authorities in Albania, feel responsible for those who are holders of Albanian passports, because I do not wish to use the term Albanian citizens, but I wish to say holders of Albanian passports. We are very interested in cooperating with EU member state authorities, law enforcement agencies, so as to intensify joint investigations, and we've been successful, and I'm absolutely sure that we will have ever more results to show in this regard. And I'm absolutely sure that the question marks and the questions that have come in from the Netherlands will be sorted out, as it were. And I've had a discussion with my counterpart in the Netherlands. In relation to France, there's a drastic reduction in the numbers as of 2015, 2016 in asylum seekers, when we had that inverted commas explosion, when a lot of Albanians joined that corridor. But in the whole of the Schengen area, asylum seekers numbers from Albania is in reduction, but there's an anomaly in France. So in the Schengen area, the number is going down exponentially, but in France we see a small increase, which is related to a lot of factors, but amongst other things, it is about the fact that France has other policies as opposed to other countries where the numbers have been going down. So we have identified these problems, and we are establishing these mechanisms to address this matter. But we're absolutely confident that the general trend of the reduction or the lowering of the number of asylum seekers, as elsewhere in the Schengen area, like I said, will also be the case in France. So other than France, where there's this anomaly, if you like, we will try to resolve this. Thank you.
Well, let me start from the first point. Organized crime remains a source of concern for Albania and in Albania. However, in the past year, it is good to say, we noted an increasing number of large police operations targeting organized crime groups. I have discussed this issue in my previous meetings with the Albanian authorities in Tirana, and we did it together also with the minister. The fact that there are still operations ongoing in Albania is a result also of a very good cooperation between Albania and the member states of the European Union. That said, investigations and prosecutions in Albania should go deeper in order to crack down on criminal networks, to dismantle them, and have criminals convicted at the final level. Now, as far as the asylum applications in Albania are concerned, it is true that we continue to monitor the unfounded asylum applications of Albanian citizens, or, as the Minister said, of people who have Albanian passports in EU member states and Schengen-associated countries. In the first half of this year, there was a slight increase. Albania should continue to implement the various measures introduced to tackle this problem, this phenomenon, and authorities should continue to work closely with the concerned European Union's member states. The existing readmission agreement with the European Union should continue to operate well. Now, as far as the visa suspension mechanism that was proposed by some member states to be triggered, I want to tell you that the Commission and myself have very carefully assessed the notification received from the Netherlands, as well as all the available data. We concluded that in the current situation, the circumstances to trigger the suspension mechanism are not met. On the other hand, I'm convinced that given the commitment of the Albanian government and the Albanian authorities, even in the future, there won't be such a case. But, as I have repeatedly said, and I'm very frank today, I am urging the Albanian authorities to ensure and protect this gift offered to the Albanian citizens by the European Union. And I'm more than sure that the Albanian authorities are going to do their part. We are crossing a transitional period on all these issues, but I can tell you that I'm more than convinced that Albania is fully committed, and the fact that we are here today is one more proof that Albania can even be and present it as a role model country for the other countries in the region in this area.
We'll take one last question, and then we will resume this press point. Thank you.
Erista Zyka, ABC News and Clan TV. Let me, Commissioner, just follow up your final answer, because it's very important. You know, there have been growing concerns coming from French authorities concerning the high number of asylum seekers in France. Albanian asylums. In 2017 and 18, Albanians were the highest number of asylum seekers in France, and now for this year it seems that they are ranked at second place. So I assure 100% that after refusing the Dutch notification, you will not consider, some concerns of French authorities. Have French authorities reported this concern to you? And are you really sure that there is no risk if inactivating the visa suspension mechanism?
I was very clear replying before on this issue. I have nothing else to add. And of course, don't ask me questions where I'm 100% for something. You can never be 100% sure for anything in life, including this issue.
May I just a final question? Yes. Minister, together with the fight against terrorism comes the fight against organized crime. How do you explain that there have been big seizure of cocaine during the joint operations with partners and member states, but those operations have not been followed up by arrest of commanders or big fish, if you like, but only executors? Do you realize that this, undermine the trust of member states in Albanian authorities? Thank you.
Thank you. Know what do you mean by big fish? What is your definition for big fish? But so we think that having been able to disrupt organized crime groups and seizing considerable amounts of cocaine, even in our close cooperation with European partners, in this case with Greek partners, it was a great success. We have been able to arrest a big number of criminal members of criminal groups. And so the question of who is the big fish, I don't know if you have the idea that this international big fish controlling the whole cocaine traffic in the world, maybe this could be the big fish. But in our opinion, we have catched a lot of big fishes in terms of fight against organized crime. I can mention just that almost compared to the previous year, we have been able to increase the number of, by more than 100%, number of the criminal organized groups disrupted and dismantled by our operations. So more than 100% plus compared to the previous year, which was to be one of the most successful years. The only which I can say is this for the time.
Let me add to that drug trafficking in Albania remains a challenge. Definitely. And as I said before, we have discussed it with the Albanian authorities. Albanian authorities, law enforcement authorities, are pursuing actions against the cultivation and the trafficking of cannabis. We know that. And are engaged in, I would say, operational cooperation with us, with Europol, but also with other member states, and exchange information, which was a good start. I remember when I had visited Tirana, it was 1.5 years ago, I had proposed, and the Albanian authorities immediately accepted to strengthen and deepen our cooperation in this area. So the law enforcement operations are continued, also in the framework of the international police cooperation. And I would like to commend Albania for all these achievements during the last 2 years, and I'm sure that they will continue doing so till the complete eradication of this big problem in the country.
Thank you very much. This will conclude our short press point. Thank you very much for having attended.
Thank you very much.